Rick, good to see you again. You ready?
Good morning, Keith. Yes, good to see you.
Why don't you start us off on a topic, of awareness being the first step to change?
Well, that's a great lead in. I think one of your favorites, Eckhart Tolle, said, and I hope I get this quote somewhat correct. He says something along the lines of awareness, awareness. It's the greatest agent for change. And then he goes on to talk about what he means by that. And I think the bottom line is that in order for you to start down the road of changing whatever you don't like, you have to begin with the idea of knowing what it is, exactly what it is, and being aware of what it is that you don't like. So for me, for example, one of the things I dislike about myself is that I'm easy to anger in traffic. And I'm also, as I'm aging, I find myself more impatient with other people. And I have no reason understanding why that is. I think part of it, as you age, there's this brown sludge that courses through your existence. It's like this slow uh, gunking up of the gears. And I have to be aware of that. I have to be mindful of that so that I can fight it, so that I can say, ah, yes, okay, Rick, what's happening is this is a condition of aging. This is something that you're going to fall into unless you're aware of it. And once you're aware of it, you can say, okay, that's not what I want to do. I'm not going to be irritated about this guy going too slow in front of me in the roundabout in Sedona. I'm going to be okay with it. It's just life. It's just part of breathing in and out, leaves falling off the tree, wind that I don't like, whatever it might be. It's the idea of being aware of it so that I can change the behavior. So awareness is the first step, and it's the greatest agent and the first step to changing things that you don't like.
Rick, I totally agree with that. I found that to be true for myself. And I think Eckhart Tolle nailed it. Uh, and any change that I've made is because I become aware, really aware. Before, a lot of changes that I was making was more, I guess, superficial. Didn't lead to like sustained happiness or peacefulness. But as I've embarked on this journey of the practice in earnest over the last 9+ years, that's really changed. And that when I'm being aware, I am made, I become conscious that there's a choice of how to interact with the moment that's in front of me, which is pretty big because without that before, my little Keith, which I call my ego or my psyche, would take me on a ride, and this little Keith has no license to drive anybody anywhere. But it would literally just throw me in the back seat of the car, and we would be speeding down the road, and it would be over. And what I mean by that is a classic example would be showing up at work and it not being the way that my mind said it should be. Whether it's they made a change that I was unaware of. They gave us something that was a process that was going to improve everything, and now they rethought it and changed it. And before you know it, without even hearing what the change is or how it could be positive or all of the reasons and deliberation that went into making the change, I've already said it's a bad idea, and I am just bent on being a problem, resisting it. And that has happened time and time again in my life that I have, adopt this attitude, don't bother me with the facts, my mind is made up. And that's because I'm not aware that there's a different choice. And that awareness, that's your way out. Like you gave the example of being in traffic, that that's a great example because if you're not careful, you will be just completely locked in on being upset with the motorist in front of you, whereas not aware that there's a choice. And what's a choice? Not to be upset about the motorist in front of you. Like that's an option. And how do you do that? You do that by being aware and practicing and working on it. And you have to be diligent about it. I mean, it's going to the awareness is going to come and go on your journey, but with practice, it's going to be sustained for longer and longer periods of time. And as I become aware, I kind of almost chuckle at myself of how easily I could have made something a complete mess. Like there was a couple of months where I ruined the experience of myself and others on the pickleball court because I wasn't aware. I was either in my head about my own play or I was in my head about somebody else's play. Same thing in the workplace, ruining great opportunities to be connected to colleagues and to really, because I forgot that I'm there to serve. Same thing in relationships, what my partners got to do and how they need to change, being unaware that there's a different choice. I could change. I could learn how to handle my partner being exactly the way that they are, the way that the workday is unfolding, accepting the way that it's unfolding, and then I would have a great day. So it just reminds me that awareness is the first step of remembering that that the way you experience life is an inside job. It's not dependent on anything on the outside. It is completely an inside job. As we get here in 2024 in the United States, we near the election year for president. I see people already, I mean, they started 4 years ago getting worked up and they just get worked up more and more about what's going to happen. And you can easily be drawn into that. Or you can say, you know what? I'm going to take intelligent action, vote for who I'm going to vote for. And then I'll use my practice the rest of the way, and just make sure that no matter what happens, I will be a contribution to myself, to my family, to my neighbors, to my community, to the state, to the country, to the world. Like make that your job. And when I do that, it's clear to me that I'm practicing awareness when I think of life in that way.
Yeah, that's well said, Keith. I think you're right. That's the way to go with it. The awareness for me is always, I shouldn't say always, but I try to make it always about being who I want to be. And one of the priorities that I have for myself is I want to be calm, I want to be steady, I want to
Yes.
be reliable, I want to be responsible, I want to be accountable. And so by being calm and steady and focusing on that, that helps me realize that when I'm fussing and I'm fretting, and I do that, that I'm off the path. That's not where I want to be. And I have to be aware of that to get back on the path of being that kind of what I would consider noble-minded, graceful state of being in a calm, steady, and aware.
Yeah, I love that, Rick. I think awareness is something, it's a muscle.
It's a
And
muscle.
yeah,
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
yeah, and you have to keep exercising it. And it shows up in so many different ways. I hear people, wake up in the morning and like, I just do not feel like going to the gym. I mean, like you hear the voice, bring some awareness to the voice to say, we have a choice here, and you and I made a choice a long time ago that regardless of what the mind is saying, we're non-negotiable about those kinds of things of being healthy and being fit. And over time, we made it non-negotiable about being a giver in the world as opposed to a taker. And how do you know what's the difference between a giver and a taker? A taker's about me. Everything's about me. You can dress it up however you want to. It's about me. And what's an example of that? We gave this example before, but I do a lot of good in the world. Okay, here's an example of it. Is you go out and feed the homeless, that's for them. You come back and after feeding the homeless and you post it on Facebook what you did, that's about that's about you. You don't tell anybody about what you did. Don't tell anybody about what you did. You just show up and you serve, period, whether people know or not. And that's just a beautiful thing. And our good friend Matt is great with that, man. He takes no credit for all the things that he does, and whether acknowledged or go unnoticed, it's all good. So I'm working on it, Rick, just like you, to be like you and Matt, man, and continue to be a giver. I love you, Rick.
I love you, Keith. Thanks for including me.
Thank you.